Well, good morning. Looks like another nice day has come. Good day just to carry on a little chat. Now, two things come to mind in what I put in my previous videos that I'd overlooked, or came to mind that are still very relevant to the story. And I kind of, when I was mentioned to you, being in Thetford Forest, and while I was there, just thinking about all the people fleeing through the forests of Zaire and being hunted by the militia, trying to escape. And we've seen lots of situations in the world where people have had to flee for their lives, trying to escape in time. And it's been very relevant to the story. It's the unexpected when you least expect it. Being caught in the wrong place at the wrong time can be fatal. And the big question that remains, certainly a big question for me, and one I would really level at DC3, Dis Christian Community Church, the Roy Lincoln liar, Mr. Newbury, God bless his soul, no longer with us. So for me the big question is how much is someone's life worth? How much is a loved one's life worth? If someone who you loved and cared about, if a gang was threatening to burn them alive in their car the next time they saw them, and that was really put on your heart to urgently go and stand in the gap, would you stay or would you go? And DC3, Dis Christian Community Church, really selling me out, saying that my going to Kenya was a hoax and I was a fake, but it wasn't. It was a genuine emergency. And there's some real twists in this story too. As truth are in the world, if you want to understand what's really going on in the world today with the black occultists, the Freemason agenda, satanic agenda, the Antichrist New World Order, you really want to know what's going on today, you have to understand what has already gone on in the past. Nimrod, Babylon, Sumatra, Egypt. And when you understand what's happened in the past, that helps you to understand what is happening now in the present and why. And one thing I've tried to do in this, in the story to make it relevant, not just to prove my innocence and how relevant it is, not just to me but to you too, is who, how and why. Who set me up, how I was set up, and why I was set up. And that goes for Africa, that goes for Dis, that goes for Norwich, and that goes for Sandringham. And Sandringham plays a part in it, certainly in the who, how and why. And because I'd mentioned Sandringham, I had Norfolk police on the door. Simon Bailey sent his plainclothes lover around to inform me they'd put me on their terrorist watch list. Well, there's no terrorist here either. No serial killer, no terrorist here. And so anyway, going back to the past, it's very relevant. The Roy Lincoln lawyer told everyone that Kenya was the most civilized country in Africa. May be the case. You know, he made it out to be like one big tourist safari park, and there would never be any problem in Kenya. Now, when I'd been in Kisumu before my mother went over there, and as I said, I was with Ambrose, and we stood not very far from huts that had been burnt down with the families in, or families had been massacred trying to flee, when the President's tribe, the Mandi tribe, well armed, well fed, were pushed in against the Lur tribe around Kisumu, and there was a big tribal conflict. And also civil uprising in Kisumu, curfew, no phone, no electricity, pitch black, mobs on the rampage, people being shot on the streets. And I also stayed with Charles up at Semi. Now he was a chief's son, and me and Charles got on really well, and he was saying, "Johnny, come over here, why don't you come over here?" Like, he was building his brother a hut, really nice hut, thatched roof, about the equivalent of £90. And he was saying, "Come over here, come and live in Kenya, lovely Ver Lake, Victoria." And on the Sunday night, you know, I went to bed a bit early and laying there, and then about 11 o'clock at night, the drums all started up. Because of the tribal conflict, the Lur were burying their dead. And in Kenya, just normal funerals are a big thing, but during tribal conflict, when people have, when they're burying their loved ones that have been killed in tribal conflict, I mean, if you could have heard, it's like, you know, it's almost like all round just over the ridge from where I was. I thought it was a war party because the wailing, the drums, you know, and this weren't just over one ridge, it's sort of like in every direction, the Lure now. And the drums are going all night, you know, wailing. I said to Charles in the morning, you know, are they war parties? You know, because we were right in the area where the tribal fighting was taking place. And he said, no, they were the funerals. And then also, but according to DC3 and the Roy Lincoln lawyer, I was making this up. You know, never been any problem in Kenya. Kenya's, you know, a great big tourist safari park, and that's not the case. And also, in 2006, 600 people were massacred in the north of Kenya, and this affected 48,000 people. So I was watching that situation very closely. And the other thing that surprised me a bit too is one time I was in Kisumu with the Roy Lincoln lawyer's right-hand man, Simon Newbury. And again, this is before my mother went out there, we were out there. And we visited Jane, and this is in the Kondela area. And Kondeli has seen a lot of bloodshed in tribal conflict. It's the big shanty area of Kisumu. And we left Jane, and it was then getting nightfall, getting dusk. And you don't phone a taxi. You go out on one of the streets and you wait for what they call a wapazi or a minibus. So that's what we done. We're standing there on this very long street. You know, you can see miles, half a mile in each direction, if not more. Now, and there's not a car in sight, but we're just standing there waiting for a wapazi to come along. And we're standing by this shanty, I'm saying this shanty area, Kondeli, a very rough area of Kisumu. And there's about 8 blokes all at this shanty bar drinking their homemade brew that they make in the shanty towns. And Simon Newbury, who I'm with there, he's standing there with a very expensive video camera and a bag. Well, there's 2 of us there's 8 guys there, pretty juiced up on their home brew, and obviously they're making comments towards us, and they're getting a little bit more bolder and bolder. Now Simon Newbury, he really starts to brick himself, because the other problem he has, I don't know what the medical term or condition is if he gets stabbed or if he gets cut, he'll bleed out. His blood doesn't clot. So he is really getting on edge, because these guys are getting bolder and bolder, making more and more comments towards us, start coming over a bit more closer to us, because there's 2 of us, there's 8 of them. They can jump us off with the camera, off with the bags, disappear into the shanty area, and they're gone. Do you get stabbed in the process? Could be the case. But then just, God's deliverance, just when we need it, just when they are really getting their boldness up and their confidence is growing and their banter is growing towards us, we see a pair of headlights in the distance, and sure enough that was a Wapasi, a taxi. So we're delivered just in time. It could have been quite a precarious situation that we would have found ourselves in. Now what was interesting, after DC3 have sold me out and banned me for the church from going, all these monster lies coming out of DC3 in the community, which I've covered in the other things. In 2008, I was down at Far End with Nick Shea, and we heard trouble was starting, and Nick said, Johnny, if you want to go and support your mum, trouble, it was all on the news that trouble was starting in Kenya. So we went and looked at the price of flights down there, and everyone was cancelling their flights, so the planes were going down there empty. And you could get to Kenya for £178. So I'm ready to go drop a hat. I pray about it. And funny enough, I come from Burston to this, my bag is packed. Nick has kindly offered to, if I need to go, he'll put up the money for the fare. I wasn't working at the time because of all the black frames, and it was very hard to get employment and stuff. So I'm making my way into this, and I come down Derbyshire's Hill, and there's roadworks down there. And I come to where the traffic lights, well, they're not traffic lights actually. There's a guy walking down the middle of the road, and he's carrying a big stop sign, big stop go sign. But the sign is on stop, and I just again get this witness in my spirit that this time God is telling me to stop, not to go. Before the light went to green, and there was go urgently, genuine emergency, a life or death situation, a race against time. But this time, a stop, a don't go. And excuse me. So I think, fair enough, Lord, I'm going to trust you. There's either I can't do anything, or that's going to get so bad I wouldn't even be able to get into Kisumu. If I was able to reach Kisumu, even the airport, there's no way I'm going to reach where Mum is, because there'll be roadblocks and the mobs will be out and so forth. I'm just going to have to trust you. You're saying stop, so I'm going to trust you that everything's going to be okay. And within a few days, it's been reported on the BBC News that people were being, and that was shown on the news, that people were being hacked to death on the streets of Kenya. Children were being thrown into burning churches. And just as this big news bulletin had sort of hit the UK, it was midday, I'm in Skelton Road in Diss, and the first person I see driving along Skelton Road is none other than the Roy Lincoln lawyer, the ex-leader of DC3, Hope Church now, Diss Christian Community Church. And he can't look me in the face. He knew I was there. It saw me, but he looked down. And I thought, yeah, you know what you've done. You totally sold me out in the past, and all your false allegations towards myself, and all the monster lies that have rolled out of DC3, and saying Kenya is such a civilized place, would never be any trouble there. And look at it. And what was strange too, my mother, she run into a gentleman just prior to all this trouble starting in Kenya after the elections. She run into a man, and he'd come all the way from America. God had given him a vision And in this vision, the streets of Kenya were running with blood. And he was so troubled by this vision that God had given him, he went to Kenya to warn people. And some people heeded his warning, some people didn't. And my mum, just out of a chance, coincidence, met this guy, and he shared this vision that he had had. And sure enough, a couple of weeks after that, the streets of Kenya were running with blood. Now, there was a couple from Norwich who they were all in the EDP. They had, I think they had like 5 children in their care. Yeah, but all the Europeans couldn't get out quick enough. They fled for their life. And my mum's driver, the couple who were in the EDP in Norwich and all that, my mum's driver risked his life to get them out of Kisumu. Yeah, that's how bad things were. And my mum was the only European who remained in Kisumu with 200 children in her care. And then another 300 street children came and took refuge at Covenant Home. So she had 500 children, and all around them, places were burnt and looted, people were killed, but no one touched Covenant Home. And even when she went out in her vehicle to get supplies, the mobs would open up and let her vehicle through. Also at the roadblocks would open up and let her vehicle through to get supplies. So thank God for that. And people's anger was vented at the rigged election, weren't, vented towards my mother this time, as it had been in the past with Jaffa and his gang. And the thing is, she also witnessed police assassinations where police would move the mob along or move the pack of people along, single out a few ringleaders or individuals who were sort of at the forefront of what was taking place, take them round the corner and shoot them. And my mum witnessed police assassinations, which later she flagged up. So the police in Kenya, to get their own back on my mother because of her reporting, police assassinations, they claimed they wanted to get her deported and so forth. They claimed that she was in league with criminal gangs, and that is why Covenant Home wasn't touched. But it wasn't. It's just the sheer grace and spirit of God that my mother and 500 children taken refuge with her. And then the other ironic twist, with Mr. Simon Newberry, like I say, God rest his soul, he did have some good qualities too, but played a big part in my demise with the Roy Lincoln lawyer in the past and selling me out with DC3. 18 months after I'm totally stitched up and sold out, by the church and by the community, Roy Lincoln lawyer, his mother-in-law, Flo Lee, lovely gentle lady, real character was Flo, lovely lady. That was his mother-in-law, Janet Newberry's mum. She was caught in the wrong place at the wrong time on the 1066 in a fatal accident, God rest her soul, and killed outright. And again, the question I asked him, how much value do you put on someone's life, on your own life, on your own priceless eternal soul? And then, to top this, only, not too far back, the Roy Lincoln lawyer's wife, Mr. Lincoln, who was the ex-leader of DC3, who was saying that I was a fake and my going was not, was a hoax and so forth, which it wasn't, a genuine emergency. Making sure my mother didn't get trapped, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, and up against quite a formidable gang, Jaffa and his gang threatening to burn her alive. His wife Sylvia was hit by a lorry and almost killed, ended up in Addenbrooke, serious brain injuries, and also recently over at Bungie, a woman was hit by a lorry and killed outright. Just in the last few months, a woman was killed in Dis, the second in that location. Before, it was a elderly woman hit by a flour, I think it was a mill lorry, a flour mill lorry, crane lorry. And Crane Chicken playing a big part recently in my assassination, Burston Mill playing a big part in my assassination. So as I say, that's a little bit, makes some more, you know, relevant points. So in my other videos, I'd got to the kind of stage where things were in this. I mean, another thing happened. I mean, I had the Shea Fraternal, the big police collaboration, my ex-wife, her family. I mean, the Shea Fraternal, Peter, my father-in-law, William, Ben came round. Quite a big confrontation. Just storm into my house, accusing me of everything, calling me everything under the sun. You know, my father-in-law, Peter Shea, right in my face. And when someone gets in your face and just yelling and screaming, just walk into your house. So I did move him out of my face. You know, I got him by the scruff and moved him back. And that time I'm grabbed. Peter Shea has grabbed one arm and he's biting into my wrist. Will has got the other arm. Ben, there's beer bottles on the side. He's smashing beer bottles over my head. Then he looks like he's going for a knife because there's a knife laying on the side. And this is just another example how people can change things to set you up and to stitch you up. So I break free, I get a hold of Ben, I shove him towards the hallway, the back door, and I say to him, right, if you don't get out of here now, I am going to fight you with everything I've got. You know, you've come into my home, you've confronted me, you know, my wrist is chewed up, you've bust beer bottles over my head. If you don't leave now, I am going to fight you with everything I've got. So I gave him the opportunity to leave. But according to them, and they know this is a big blatant lie, and on Reuben's life and on Joe's life, and God is my witness, this is how the story is twisted to the police. When I moved Peter Shea, my ex-father-in-law, out of my face, he's yelling and calling me everything under the sun. When I got him by the scruff and moved him out of my face, they claimed I tried to strangle him, which is just not the case. I got him by the scruff, didn't know why I tried to strangle him. Then, to make the situation worse, they claimed that I picked up the knife and chased him out of my house with a carving knife. Well, God is my witness, that never happened. I never left out. I gave him the opportunity. If I hadn't left, I would have fought him, not stabbed him. I would have just, you know, fought him with everything I've got. But I did give them the opportunity to leave, and they did leave, and there's no way, and they know that's a big blatant lie, there's no way I chased them out of my house with a carving knife. But this is what was told to the police, this is what was told to my own family. So now we've got a big collaboration with the police, with the Shea Fraternal, even with my own family, have set me up to get me locked up, even though I'm the target in this of, you know, the hate crime, the death threats, got wheels coming off vehicles, you know, fully loaded milk float, and he put me in the path of a lorry. I've got phone calls day and night, so I'm the target. And because I haven't done anything, you know, people think, well, it's open season on Johnny Botwright. And now I've got my own family and my ex-wife's family and my ex-wife collaborating with the police, all collaborating to get me locked up. So I had 27 written death threats notes in a folder, plus all the scrawled ones from Perry Green, who I mentioned in another video. He was squatting in a house nearby, and he was also stalking my wife Julie and making all these false allegations against me, putting notes on people's cars, all in that area, putting notes through people's doors. You know, it was all aimed at myself, and he was telling Julie how lovely she was, and he saw her every day and watched her. So he was stalking her, big death threats towards myself. And he later stabbed Paul Chambers, who was my ex-wife Julie, that was her foster brother. But in a separate incident, he stabbed Paul Chambers, so he got put on remand, so his death threat stopped. So I went to Roland's, you know, the police are playing a big part in this, as, you know, Bunton, when I took complaints down him, screwed them up and put them into the bin. I had another interesting thing. I was talking to Rachel Atkinson in Mere Street, a good friend, by Nat West Bank in Mere Street, which is closed now, but we're standing there talking, and Inspector Bunton comes up to me in such a rage. His face is as red as a double-decker bus, as red as a traffic light on Victoria Road that kept getting hit by the swimming pool. And as I say, no double-decker bus serial killer here, no bus stop paedophile serial killer here. But he comes up to me in a big rage, his face, he's frothing at the mouth. "We will fix you, Botwright, you're dealing with the wrong people." You know, right in my face. This is the police inspector, you know, who's out of uniform in the middle of Mere Street, making this big scene. Even Rachel, I mean, Rachel has lived life, you know, she's knows what's on, you know. She's a pretty streetwise girl. Even she was taken back. She went, "He can't do that." You know, she was completely, you know, really brazen, this big, you know, onslaught from Inspector Bunham. So anyhow, I went to Rowland's solicitors and I spoke to Mr. Rowlands, who later became a judge. And I show him, obviously show him the death threats, and they're all full of "I'm a serial killer" and Fred West and underage pregnancies and burials, and so according, you know, to the paternal, and all the false allegations towards Africa, all in these death threats. I'm warned, even my ex-wife Julie warned me that you know, they had heard "Don't go on the common where I walk the dogs," because they were going to be waiting on the common with baseball bats. Men would be waiting to jump me on the common. I mean, I never saw anyone over there, but a lot of it, with death threats and so forth and phone calls, a lot of it is like psychological warfare. People are just trying to put you under pressure for whatever reason, seeing if they can crush you. So you know a lot of the threats, because the people I know who would do this kind of thing, they wouldn't keep writing to you and phoning you and telling you they're going to do it. That would just happen. You wouldn't know anything about it till after the event. So, but you know, they were going to hang me. Young farmer sending me shotgun cartridges saying there was one with my name on. You know, the milkman stirring up all these monster-lised reindeers, the postman. So I go to Rowland's solicitors, I show Mr. Rowlands, and say, who later became a judge, could judge of character. He says, "Johnny, you've got a good case of character assassination. But just to clear your name, this is not so, it weren't about money, never been about money. Just to clear your name, you can't get legal aid." He said, "You're looking at £21,000. Well, and you're going back quite a lot of years. Who's got £21,000 to clear your name? There wasn't the internet at the time, so I was just being totally served up like a four-way fight, from the churches, from the community, from family, from the police, from this council, you know, your Freemason fraternal. So what's the next step? You know, they've almost put me in a path of Loriander and wheel nuts, which they've really crossed the line now, the people behind these false allegations and monster black lies. You know, the death threats, the phone calls round the clock. So what we done, we got 2 tins of aerosol, obviously didn't have £21,000, 2 tins of aerosol, £5.40. And we sprayed up using the letter SED with an aerosol, marked, you know, on people's doors, or for instance, the council had a black SED, Barclays Bank had a black SED, Trudy Blumfield and Co. We had, the post office had the biggest black SED on their door or over their door. And we put 18 SED, the Freemason Lodge, the Conservative Club, we put 18 black SEDs around this, Kingfisher's Dairy, Simon's, Council. There are still two black SEDs that remain. That are, one is down near Kingfisher's, and there's still one on the shutter door when you come out of Morrison's, was Bennett's, Trevor Woods, used to be Bennett's, which is now the Red Cross shop, but there's still a black Z, not a black Z, a blue Z there. But we put 18 Zs, 666, you know, this is quite a demonic attack coming in from every way. So we want to push this, you know, because the allegations, the monster black lies, weren't just aimed at me. They were aimed at, you know, the lads who were staying with me too, Brian, Dale and Gavin. False allegations of sex with young girls and so forth. But so we've marked the town up. We want to push this into the public domain, and we're also sending a message to the people, you know, who are setting me up in particular, the death threats, Wheels, that right, enough is enough. You can stop now. You've crossed the line. Could have been killed when I had the wheel come off a vehicle and nearly put me on a head-on collision with a lorry. So this is a warning. Enough is enough. You stop. And sure enough, things did stop. Once these people were marked, there was no more. The phone call stopped. The death threat stopped. Everyone's gone. And even the Dis Express run the story. What are all these black Zeds? Some were blue, some were black. What are all these Zeds in Dis? What do they mean? I mean, people did call me the Zed man. People said I was mad and deranged, but there was a real, method. All right, if you want to call it, there was a real method in my madness. I wasn't mad, but there's an expression that people use. So we're pushing it out into the public domain. This big hate campaign, the monster black lies, the death threats. And the Dis Express has run the story, so it's got the publicity. So what is this all about? What is going on? Why has Johnny Botwright, some others with him, sprayed up Dis? And why a Z? I like the Sorrow film, Sorrow would mark, but I didn't think I was Sorrow. The reason we used a Z, or I used a Z, is I went to Kenya, I went to Africa because the sword was out. Genocide. Jaff and his gang threatening to burn my mother alive. A genuine emergency, not one penny from anybody. There is no way I went on a Fred West luxury holiday, Sutcliffe luxury holiday in a nice hotel, as was falsely alleged, having sex with black hookers, grooming young girls, abusing children, all paid for by the people of Dis and churches, which, if those monster lies, false allegations were true, I would have served at least 18 months of a 3-year sentence, according to Dis Police, Lambert and Lister, Batman and Robin. But there's just big monster lies that have been pushed around Dis. So we've marked everyone up. They're now backing off because I think, well, what's he going to do? We've obviously know who, we know how, and we know why, and we've marked them. So I'm then arrested for criminal damage, which is good because I can't clear my name. I haven't got £21,000, but if these people press charges, it's only a bit of graffiti, need be, we'll go around and clear the sets off. That's not a problem. This is just to push it out in the public domain, but we will get our day in court. If these people press charges for criminal damage, a black set, and the other interesting thing I did mention to you, when I was standing by the shores of Lake Victoria, a big electrical storm over the lake, and the Lord, in my spirit, just heard the Lord's voice very clearly. Johnny, the storm is coming. Big storm, bolts of lightning all over Lake Victoria, sheet lightning. The sword is out in Africa, the sword is out in the Middle East, the sword is out in the Far East, and the sword is out in Europe. And I said in my other video, I was really surprised when the Lord said the sword is out in Europe, because nothing was happening in Europe. That's how I knew it was the Lord's voice, because I was surprised when the Lord said the sword is out in Europe. And sure enough, a few months later after I returned, Bosnia and Serbia just exploded. It seemed like the evil that had manifested itself in Rwanda had now moved to Europe, because we had mass graves in Europe, terrible atrocities from both sides. There were radar planes up over East Anglia. They were flying in, bombing Serbia from Lakenheath and Mildenhall, probably maybe other military bases. And that's the thing, we are all in range of war on a day just like today, the unexpected when you least expect it. It's like when I was in Russia in the Merchant Navy next to a ship called the Lord Nelson, which was an American ship. We watched a lot of the Baltic fleet put to sea. Russia had just invaded Afghanistan. The West was rearing up because Russia had invaded Afghanistan. The whole Baltic fleet is putting to sea. We're thinking, an American ship next to us called the Lord Nelson, another Battle of Trafalgar. I mean, the UK has not got much of a navy now. And also, while in Russia, when you go into their, I saw scale models of the UK in their war museums of London, every strategic target marked and could be hit in no time at all. And you're going back, I mean, they've got much more high-tech missiles and delivery systems now. They can put a missile through your letterbox. So every strategic target marked, and the Russian generals were saying that their troops would be washing their feet by 2010, which didn't happen, but would be washing their feet in the Indian Ocean. And we know We know that Mog and Magog come out of the far north in the end times like an avalanche, and that precedes the kings of the east, whose number is 200 million, where China can now boast a land army of 200 million, yoked with North Korea, Iran and so forth, and they slay a third of mankind. So we're all very much, in the range of war. And sure enough, what the Lord had said, the sword being out in Europe, is still very much the case. Recent dialogue between Russia, the Middle East, Syria, Turkey, the Kurds. So anyhow, I'm arrested. We'll go into what happened, so I'll cut this video here now. So I'm arrested for criminal damage, a bit of graffiti, and we think, great, the people who have set me up, right, they're going to press charges for criminal damage. We'll get into court. The press will be there. They'll say, well, Johnny, why did you mark these people up? I can run the story past them, what is going on in this, take the death threats and so forth, wheels coming off vehicles. We'll have our day in court with the press there, and then we'll push this out so people in this can really see and know and understand what is going on. And but not one person who we marked, not one person will press charges for criminal damage. Not one person, because they don't want to face me. A bit like Graham Kingfisher when I took him to an industrial tribunal, Bury St Edmunds, with all false allegations of an underage pregnancy, a rape. People said I'd buried the girl underground works at Halston or patios, or disappeared her into the mere. Another big monster lie. Also the big fire starter lies. Yeah, we did have a serial fire starter in this, and there were haystacks going up around this, but God is my witness, absolutely nothing to do with me. Absolutely nothing to do with me. And the post office claiming that I'd sent them hoax bombs. Again, absolutely nothing to do with me. God is my witness. Again, this big post office hoax bomb stories. So I'm arrested for criminal damage. Not one person will press charges for criminal damage because they don't want to face me in court with the press there and back up all their monster black lies and death threats. So Inspector Bunton's in a quandrum. I'm sitting in a cell. Now when you're under arrest, you should be allowed a phone call. I'm not allowed a phone call because they know I can, if I get access to a solicitor, particularly a good solicitor like Simon Nichols, Belmore Solicitors, they know I can run circles around their serial killer frame, all their monster black lies. So I'm denied a solicitor of my choice, Simon Nichols, Belmore Solicitors in Norwich. They even tell me that there is no duty solicitor available, because as I say, they know I can run circles around this big police frame, fix assassination. So I'm sitting in a cell, didn't even get a drink of water for over 6 hours. Dr. Hume comes into the cell. Now Dr. Hume, he is my GP, but we've never met. This is our first meeting. I haven't been to GP in 30 years for anything, but he comes into the cell. At the time someone told me he had a drink problem, was later suspended because of it, and I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I was told. He had a drink problem and he was suspended because of it. But he came into the cell. This is our first ever meeting. This is my assessment from Dr. Hume, who's meant to protect your patient. He comes into the cell, he's mumbling his words. I call him Mumbling Mary. And he goes, I think, he did look half cut. I thought, did he drive there? Did he honestly drive down here? So he went, you can't stay here. And that was it. He walked out of the cell. And, people are saying, someone else came in, oh, your wife is saying this, your wife is saying that. I thought, yeah, I bet they are in the Shea Fraternal. Nicely setting me up. So with Inspector Bunton leaning on Dr. Hume and the council, the hierarchy, Freemason Fraternal, MEP, OBE, MP, Mayor, all leaning on Dr. Hume, he signs my detention into maximum security. So I've walked right into a police trap. I'm meant to be going there for an interview. That's why we've marked the town up. I've got the folder with the 27 death threats and the scrawled ones from Perry Green with me. no interview ever takes place because they don't want a paper trail. They don't want this evidence logged. And this happened even recently when police come around to see me, when they came out and I said, right, I can prove you're wrong, I can show you the evidence. And I was being recorded at the time. They didn't want to see the evidence. They had to suddenly leave because they didn't want that on a police video, the evidence that I could show them to prove, you know, the police frame that I'm in. So here I am sitting in a cell. I know I'm being shanghaied. They denied me access to a phone call or a solicitor, told me a duty solicitor's not available. Mumble and Mary, Dr. Who has come in. It took him longer to sign my detention and what it did, you know, for my so-called assessment. This is our first ever meeting, and I'm kicked down the hole. And at 16:15 on my police report, 4 officers burst in, well 5, but the last one didn't get in the door, so I'm ready. They just opened the door, charge, and it says on my police report, I took the first one down by his knee and then the others went, tumbled up on him. So there's me and 4 officers in a police cell. 16:15 they come in, and at 16:30 they left the cell. They all wanted a piece of me, free for all in this cell, and they made sure when I was disappeared to maximum security, solitary confinement, that the folder with the death threats, some written on police notebook paper, which later came out, it's another story behind that, that evidence was disappeared too. So they've broken every Home Office guideline for a person under arrest to spring their sprawl trap. Physical assault, false imprisonment, fabricating evidence, making evidence disappear, which is complete, what do they call that? Perverting the course of justice. So they fabricated evidence saying that I'm, you know, this big dangerous threat, I need to be locked up and detained indefinitely. You know, I've marked people up in dis. Well, there's a good reason I've marked people up in dis, but I'm not going to appear in dis with a samurai and start decapitating people in dis. That's not what I'm about. I've just marked up to push this into the public domain. They want me locked up indefinitely, throw away the key, such as their frame, and such was their aim. They've made evidence disappear in this big serial killer, paedophile, you know, rapist frame that has taken place, the monster black lies that the police are right in the centre of. Broken every Home Office guideline, physical assault, false imprisonment, all in the line of duty. Anyhow, we'll carry on and we'll see, you know, what happens next after I'm put into maximum security. God bless, and we'll speak later. Bye.